Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, everybody. We started this episode off. You're about to get into it. And what you're going to hear inside of it is us joking about it's going to be a whole episode around sex. It wasn't quite that. But, if you want better sex, listen to this episode.
Yeah, it will help you get to the point of better sex, but we do not describe it.
Yeah. I mean, if you think our joking around about describing it is what really happens, you might have ran away from it. So Abby decided we need a disclaimer. So don't run away from this episode. We're not going to describe
It's going to be good for you, whether
sex
you're single
positions or
or
anything
married.
like that. Yeah. But you're going to like it. It's going to be about emotions.
Here we go.
And then you're going to have good sex.
If you're in a
When
relationship.
you're ready for it.
Yes.
Yep. Bye.
This is Johnny's mic.
This is my mic, Pietze.
I heard that one.
I always forget what you say. This is my mic.
God.
And then I'm like, oh, I'm Pietze.
The way you just said that.
No.
This
I'm-
is
the way-
my
I'm-
mic.
Oh, my God. At least you're happy going into this. Like, oh, God. So, hey, Connected Life peeps, we're here and everybody's laughing. And one of the things that you might not know about Abby, Justin, Pietze, and Johnny is that whenever we get together to do stuff, Johnny and I are the responsible two. And
Amen.
These two, I don't know what to call them. I would say clowns, maybe, is respectful but honest. Are always like up to shenanigans. Laughing, talking about things that don't matter, no ability for focus. I love it. Just really gets the energy right.
We've been here for half an hour already.
The funny thing is I'm like, to catch up, but I have already talked to Pietze twice today.
Yeah.
My favorite is when it's two of us on one of you guys. Oh, that sounded bad. That has never ever happened before. That's not a thing.
What?
When it's like two of us, like Abby and I, and we're with Justin, and he has to deal with both of us, or when you come here,
Oh, yeah.
and it's both of us with Johnny, and he's like, "You guys are freaking idiots. Please go away." Like Johnny's like, "Please just leave. Like go shopping, do something."
It's like trying to wrangle cats that are in heat. It's just not going to happen. They're just all over the place. Throw some catnip in there and they're all rolling around and high on their own supply, and it's like crazy.
Boy, this really went off the rails early,
Yeah,
didn't
real
it?
quick.
Well,
I figured I might as well just shove it off the rails. I was just like, I give up. I totally give up. I've been
Smart.
broken by this group here. With all that said, all this laughter and play and stuff, you guys are in for quite a treat of an episode.
ooh.
And we're going to get into crazy sexy time in Johnny and
we're
Pietze's
not
bedroom.
going to get into crazy sexy time.
No, this is
That
not
is
a
not
thing.
what this is. This is
That
not
is
audio
not a
porn.
thing.
This is not.
Oh, you've totally misunderstood. They're just going to tell us all the complete details, word for word, what happened in the bedroom.
That is not true either.
so-
People are going to turn it off.
No.
Yes.
No.
No, people are going to turn it on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are.
Oh.
Yeah, they are. Whoa. Okay.
But
So
I guess we should tell people, if you have little kids.
Yeah, before
listen to this by
we
yourself.
turn up the heat on that, just wanted to tell you guys that just a reminder, our year-long life consulting masterclass, we're having signups happening right now.
It's so much fun.
Spots are filling up fast, but we've been doing interviews with people even that are just been on the podcast and
Yeah, like
had a
they
bunch of
found us through our
transformation.
podcast. It's
And
changed their life, and now they're doing this.
It's really
and
cool getting to meet them in person and stuff like
loving
that.
it.
So if you're interested in finding out more about that and how you could be a life consultant and how you could get radical transformation in a year, you can
Yeah, if
email
you
us.
just want a year of changing your whole entire freaking life.
Yeah.
Or if you are interested in learning about doing this for a career, both ways. It's a good, good place to
you
start.
can email us at lfa@stumvalconsulting.com. You'll end up talking to Nicole and she'll give you all the links to all the goodness and all that. And with that said, here we go. Johnny, last episode, we're gonna begin with just the little bite of the end of it. But we ended the last episode. If you haven't listened to it, you need to go back and listen to it. It's going to be vital to what we talk about today. But we ended the last episode with Pietze and Jonny sitting naked in a shower, crying and making out together. And if that doesn't spark your interest in going back to the last one, I don't know what would. But did you ever make it out of the shower? That's where we're going to start.
I mean, eventually we almost flooded the bathroom.
Did flood it because one of us was sitting on the drain. And so then it started overflowing.
The way Pietze's face is like getting red, it feels like she was on that drain.
No, I was sitting on top of him at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
He was on the drain.
I was on the drain. Yes, I was on the drain.
I mean, technically we both
Johnny
sat
has a
on
big
the
butt,
drain.
though, so it probably covered that.
do.
Thing.
Yeah. And so we were like, oh, shoot. And we were in an Airbnb, of course. So we're like, dang it. We're like flooding their bathroom.
Okay. So that ended that. But going from there, you guys had ultimately we got to that place because of a journey of intimacy and heart connect that Jonny was on. And again, you're going to want to listen to that. But we want to get into the details of it. Like what ends up happening when an individual and a couple go on a journey of actually connecting to their emotions inside and getting restored to some of the places of their childlike wonder that their life began as before all of the trauma and the pain kind of like took them out. And for a lot of us out here, we go through life and we look back at the wonder years, the years of like, when I was young, everything was beautiful. Everything was easy. It felt so fun. It felt so free. And now I just grew up and became an adult and I numbed out and life hit me really hard and I became hopeless. And there's a lot of heaviness that hits us as adults. And there's like this invitation to get back to that childlike wonder that where we could dream, where we could be authentically who we are without a bunch of bitterness and resentment and anger at other people. And the question becomes, what happens when we begin to forgive ourselves, other people, when we begin to get connected to our emotions, grieve our pain? Well, for a lot of couples that grow distant and disconnected, we have an example here of Pietze and Jonny who actually have grown closer through their journey because they chose into the process of looking at their pain. And especially Jonny chose into feeling emotions instead of being a robot and a pro athlete at running away from them.
Yeah.
And so he chose back in. And so what that created for them.
Pro athlete at running away.
Nobody knows how to run away from pain like I do. I'll tell you that.
He gets the gold medal in that one.
But what even Johnny's choice as the husband in the house did for him to actually choose back into it is it created a whole lot of reconnection and created a foundation for restoration and safety inside of the relationship that not only affected their hearts, but affected their sex life. And there's parts of their sex life that we're going to get into and how it affected it in this episode.
Yeah. And one of the things I think is, so many people, we work with so many couples and so many people have lost attraction for each other or just find themselves not wanting sex or they were really frisky when they dated, but then they got married and they no longer want it. And it can be a real source of pain. And very few couples understand that sexual intimacy is so connected to emotional intimacy. Yes. And the level that you feel safe with your partner, the level that you feel safe to have a voice, to be heard, to be understood, those, you cannot separate emotional intimacy and sex. I mean, you can, but it doesn't work very well.
It does.
It's not sustainable.
I read a book. It's interesting because I read a book in the last couple of years that is by a sex researcher, and she explains like how women work sexually, but even men too. And she's like she has a whole chapter on attachment and safety and attachment. And she's like, because it's literally one of the number one things that actually helps you to open up sexually is feeling safe emotionally and secure in attachment,
Absolutely.
Well, and I would say as well in that, at least, and you'll see this as we kind of talk through what the process has been since that moment, where we were in the shower just weeping and hugging. But I think the misconception is that that's what women need.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's not what men need,
Yep.
Because, and just to be very, very open and honest here, there have been certain things that we have done sexually together in the past that are great for me, but that I feel a sense of guilt or weirdness about afterwards, because it's like, I know that you were just like doing this
that
for
to
me
love
and
me.
there's no connection.
Yeah.
But as we've gotten safe, even sexually, there's this thing where we are so connected that like what she wants, I'm happy to give to her, and what I want, she's happy to give to me. And it's in the context of not you giving me what I want, but a safety between us. And it's different. And I'm telling you, it feels different. And as a man, like
guilt-free.
it fills you up in your soul, not just in your body.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's a connection that we've had that I didn't know was possible. And we had a good sex life before. We've actually always had a pretty good sex life.
Yeah.
You know, but there are things where I'm like, I feel loved and cared for in ways that I literally didn't even know that I wanted or needed or was possible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's not just about like, oh, as long as I can make her feel emotionally safe, then it'll be okay. Like there's actually a big component on my end as well that has really changed things.
I think that that's been like one of the most surprising things to me, excuse me, about this is just I didn't realize how much it would affect our sex life, and especially me and sex. Yeah. Because I've always valued sex. I've always valued the connection through sex. And enjoyed it. Yeah. But I did not realize that there was actually a part of me that was not showing up there because I didn't feel safe. And as I've started to feel safer with him emotionally, like it literally is like a flip, like a switch flipped for me. Yeah. Where it was just it's been like a totally different experience.
Well, and it's interesting because we are I was involved in helping with a book about sex, and one of the big catchphrases we wrote in it was connected sex is better sex.
Yes.
Like the more connected you are to you and the more connected you are in your body and the more connected you are to your partner and the more connected they are to themselves and the more connected they are to you, it turns every sense of pleasure up. And what you're saying, Pietze, is so real. People can think, oh, we're doing good. It's fine. And not even notice that the parts of their heart that have grown cold or that feel scared or that like those seep into sex life. And I actually think it's designed this way. I've always thought that like sex was meant to be a temperature gauge to let you know how your hearts are doing with each other.
Yeah.
And it was meant to be a motivation for men to work on the emotional intimacy. Like I think men don't naturally learn that because of how society raises them. But I think sexuality is an area that they feel like they're allowed to express themselves. And so I think if they can learn that the two are connected, it can be a strong incentive.
I think I'm going to add this. I think that culturally we try to subvert this natural law. Yeah. So the written coding inside of us for a relational connection, a heart connection to ourselves and the person across from us, being that it amplifies the greatness of sex, people find out really early on, like they enjoy the sex that they have, especially with random partners. Sure. Like, oh, that was amazing. We like got into it or whatever. And very quickly, all of a sudden things start burning out, especially in a longer term connection with somebody, because there's not the dopamine hits of the newness of someone. And there's not like, that only goes so far before you actually have to then turn it into connection. If you don't turn it into connection, then all of a sudden we're trying to subvert it by adding different sexual practices or things outside of ourselves or going outside of the relationship to re-spice this up, rehab this feeling of engagement inside of ourselves. But it'll never work. It keeps leading to a sense of emptiness over and over again because we were really wired to fully be present in that monogamous experience with another person where we have a committed heart connection to, and you continue that exchange. Yeah. So I think that as people are listening, you need to really consider, like, am I trying to subvert something? Are there ways that I'm medicating, trying to subvert to get to the sex that I want without having to go through the connection points that are actually necessary to have that experience.
Yeah.
And I will just say this, I have a lot of compassion on people who are struggling to get there.
Absolutely.
Because the truth is, getting to these things is kind of like finding the Holy Grail. We were talking about this yesterday.
Totally.
That's what it feels like. It's
It
like
feels so elusive at
Yeah.
times. Like, I want connection and you want connection, and we both, like most couples, want
Absolutely.
this same thing.
Yes.
Both sexually and emotionally and everything.
Yes.
And it can be so difficult
Absolutely.
to find it.
to
you know?
navigate from two different sides towards that together, like
Especially-
towards that connection.
Especially if you've been married for a while and you have to navigate through
Yes.
pain and through
A
history,
pain history.
and narrative. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Pain history, navigating not just your childhood wounds that show up in marriage, but also your pain history as a couple and the triggers that you have with each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh man, it is. it's tricky. Let's say that.
It's
But
tricky. And that's why it's really, that's why we talk about the pathway to freedom, the course, which that me and Pietze made, which is the journey of learning how to really start to recognize what's going on inside of you and how to begin to own and communicate it, because it is so tricky.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we were processing before we came on here, like the story of all of this. And one thing I said to Pietze, and I think it so resonates, is that this story that we're going to cover here in the podcast is not about sex, and it's not about, the good things that we do and look at how great they are, or the bad things we do and look at how bad they are. But it's a realistic look into a marriage where you have 15 years of pain and you start getting to safety, but it's not a moment in time where you get safe once and you stay
Yes.
safe forever. But
Totally.
it's like
Right.
3 steps forward, 2 steps
Yep.
back. Like, how do we navigate these things? How do we start building the muscle of learning how to get back to that place that we got to?
Yes.
I love
that.
So I think from that moment that we were crying in the shower, obviously we went on to have really great sex that night, which was fantastic. And then we entered kind of a season where it was pretty safe for a while, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Felt really safe. Felt like the marriage that you thought that you signed up for
Yeah.
when you first got married. Like, oh, this is what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to feel like this. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And
Can you describe what safe felt like for you guys?
it felt safe, felt like gosh, that's a hard thing to describe because it just felt so safe. It felt like I feel secure that this isn't going to go anywhere. I feel secure that I can sit in my humanity. I feel secure that he can sit in his humanity, that there's room for both of us, and it's okay that we can both get seen, both feel heard, both feel understood, both feel respected and cared for by the other person.
That's good.
Yeah, like I can show up with the worst parts of me and you can see them and still love me anyways.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
I can be a human.
Yeah.
I don't have to put on a show. I
Yeah.
don't have to, like, I can just be me
But-
and you love me anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was interesting because after hitting that much safety,
This is where it gets tricky.
this is where it gets tricky.
It gets really tricky.
100%.
here.
I've worked with so many couples. You get them to a vulnerable spot, and the first bump that comes up, their walls go up higher than
Yeah.
they were to start with.
Yeah.
As
And
soon
it
as
is-
you start to let
Mhm.
your guards down, if someone doesn't respond right, if they don't,
Yes.
because you have now let them in to a
Yep.
new place
Yep.
inside, and vulnerability actually increases the intensity of a fight sometimes.
Oh, 100%. And so actually does safety, because
Yeah.
then when safety is threatened, it
Now
becomes
it's a
higher
huge
stakes.
threat. Yep.
It's a huge
The
threat.
fear
And
of losing that
and it's
safety.
almost
Yeah.
like it's ratios. So when you have more of a history of disconnect and not being able to get through things
Yep.
versus safety, your brain tells you, oh,
We're
one
going
fight
back.
and we're going back here.
Yep.
And the more you create safety, those ratios begin to shift.
Yep.
And it becomes more like, no, I know we can get through this.
Because
it's going to be okay.
We normally live in safety.
We've done it enough times that I know that we can navigate through the path.
But this is the point where lots of couples with me give up because, I mean, that I've seen give up, not with me, but I'm just saying that I've seen give up in life in general, is they start that they're trying to tip the balance from non-safety to safety.
Yes.
And it feels so scary.
Especially
and
when you
feels
pull down
hopeless.
and you've pulled on your protectors.
Yeah.
So now you don't you don't have the barrier there all of a sudden. Yeah. And you're running back to them as fast as possible. Sorry.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's and it's funny because it's just this weird shift that happens, but it's been all the way like, because you really do build on safe moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like disconnection. Okay, we got there. We found each other a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of build off of it. And so it's just a really interesting journey as you're navigating it. Because like Jonny said, it is like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Nope, other way around.
That just the girl just
3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
3 steps forward, 2 steps back.
We are making progress. That's the point.
We are making progress. But we did hit a season where it got rough.
Well, yeah.
Again,
so like
bit.
after that, we had a really good safe season, and then 2 kids and work and life sets in. You know what I mean? And so I was having some situations at work that spun me out in sort of once again, that same feeling of like, what am I doing here on this earth? And what do I even want out of life? Like kind of those midlife feelings. And I submarined. I went under emotionally, you know,
which
and I tried not
Pietze's
to.
Fear. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it was an interesting thing because it's weird as I'm navigating my emotions because I want him to feel safe that he can work through his process without feeling like he has to come out right away for me. But also I'm triggering and having tons of fear come up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I'm like trying to navigate like, hey, I feel scared. Here's what's happening. But he was on the spiral trajectory and he wasn't coming out, you know? Well,
and I think for me, like when it comes to attachment and safety, I'm a avoidant. You know, that's my attachment style. And Pietze's an anxious. And one of the scariest things you can do to an avoidant is come in and say, hey, it feels like you're detaching from me. Because it, especially an avoidant who's married to an anxious, because an avoidant who's married to an anxious knows that when they detach, then they get in trouble.
Right.
Because it causes pain in the other person.
Right.
So it feels really scary because for a lot of us who are avoidants, and when I say an avoidant, I mean that when you feel emotions, you detach.
Yeah, when you feel unsafe in relationship,
you detach.
Withdraw.
You go into yourself and you have to process it internally.
Yeah.
But for me, in that, it feels really scary because I don't know always how to get out. So it's like I am going to be punished for this thing that I can't figure out how to change.
Yeah.
And for her, because number 1, she's anxious. And number 2, there's a lot of trauma early on. And for those of you who listened to last week's episode, there's a lot of trauma early on where when she would have emotions, I would leave the building emotionally.
Yeah.
I would shut down. I would internalize. I wouldn't say anything. I would like sit on the corner of the bed and watch her cry.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is where I think subconsciously sometimes even when you would submarine or still do, I guess, it triggers that thing of what did I do? What did I do that is making, like, I'm not doing this while I'm not. And then I feel more anxiety because I'm like, which is a huge revelation that I've come to where I'm like, I made myself so small in our relationship. I tried to make myself small so that he wouldn't disattach. And what happened is that I suppressed until I would be in a huge trigger and just explode.
Blow up on me.
Blow up on him, you know, because I was so terrified that I actually was to blame.
Yeah. And so, like, I think in that season where I was submarining, it felt really scary for both of us because Pietze was feeling very much like I got to this really safe, vulnerable space and now he's abandoning me.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I got to this safe, vulnerable place. I got to this place that I thought we would never get back to, like a place that we had very, very early on. And now I can't figure out how to stop this same process that has happened over and over and over again in our marriage. You know what I mean? It's like you can't figure out how to stop it. And so as we walked through that, I think we both were really fighting to get back to that.
Yeah. Well, and I just will say, I want to say this because you've actually done a lot of work on figuring out how to, when you start to submarine, process what's coming up, work through it, be able to communicate and connect back in.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But it still sometimes is really like if something big, because something big happened in your work and it really triggered you and you were really struggling. And that's just a human thing.
Absolutely.
You know, because that's his natural tendency when he feels really unsafe is to go internal, to really like just go within himself. And you know, that I think it's just this interesting thing where it's like we're all just human, you know, like as much work as you do, you hit a season that's really difficult and you spin out again into whatever your dysfunction is, you know?
So tell me.
Wait, so one of the things you're saying really quick is that the fear is that you now know when you submarine that Pietze's then going to be really hurt. And so you actually end up feeling, not only are you now submarining yourself, but now you're waiting for punishment too.
Yes. You know, one of the things in all of this is that you can't actually, you have to be safe within yourself in order to show up for the other person. And by safe, I mean like when you're at peace, when you're good, when you have a sense of like there's not inner turmoil, but you are safe in your body.
Like you're regulated.
You're regulated.
You are connected to what's going on inside of you.
Yeah. Fully connected to yourself. Fully in your body.
Then you can show up really soft and you can show up really compassionate, but you can't really grit your teeth through feeling compassionate and soft.
Yes.
Like we all know that feeling when somebody's trying to be kind to you and you're like, this person is so crazy on the inside and I can feel it pouring out of this compassionate statement that they're trying to make to me. You know what I mean? That feeling.
I think I've done that for years, which is I can say all of the right things.
Yes.
But if I'm not regulated when I can say I'm really sorry. But if I'm not regulated inside of me, you could feel like I'm not sorry, even though, and I can mean that I'm sorry. I can have all the intention in the world. Like I'm not necessarily faking it, but if I'm not safe within myself, you will feel my walls or my protectors or whatever is going
your triggers.
On. Yes, you will feel that more than you will feel. And this is dissonance, and this is really hard. It took me a long time to learn this. In relationship as a couple, sorry, I'm getting distracted. We won't go into this for long, but if Justin apologized while he was still triggered, he would get frustrated at me because I wouldn't feel connected to what he was saying. Sure. And then he would feel like there was no way to make me happy.
Right.
Were you going to say something, Johnny?
Oh, I was just laughing over here because literally that's like one of the biggest fights for us. Like that is the dynamic. I feel like that's such a common dynamic. The one person sitting here being like, I told you I was sorry. I apologized 100 times. Like, why won't you just
I'm
let
always
it go?
Like, I know that you're saying that you're sorry with your words, but it doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel connected. It doesn't feel like you're attached to that.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Well, and it's that thing of like, I can't feel your empathy yet. I can't feel that you understand where I'm coming from. And oftentimes that's just because I still have protectors up. You know, like if I'm apologizing to Pietze and she's like, I can't feel your heart in this. It's normally because I could feel sorry with everything inside of me, but I could have my protectors of feeling shame or feeling like I'm not going to be heard or I'm not going to be understood or this is going to become a huge thing or I'm trying to minimize that it doesn't become a huge thing. Like any of those things creates a feeling where people feel something different than what you're giving. And I just think what you're saying is so good, Jonny, which is if you get safe within yourself, when you interact with somebody else, they will actually feel safety, but you can't fake that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and this is what it feels like on the inside of an avoidant, which is it's really scary because especially an avoidant who has been in marriage for a while, it can be really scary because you know that saying the right thing isn't actually going to get you where you need to go.
So it feels
sometimes
really overwhelming. Just
because if you can't figure
that's
out
all
how
I said. Just totally. Just mic drop. I'm walking out of the office. Totally.
Exactly, because it's like that same kind of thing that I said earlier about joking about the Holy Grail. It can feel like this mysterious thing, like how on earth do I get there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can say the right words, but I don't know how to get to the place where we can actually have that softness and safety.
Yeah, especially, I was going to say, from my perspective, I didn't get genuine apology till I was like 25, I think 26.
Yeah.
And
right.
that was the first time from a family member that I really, that I could remember, got a genuine like ownership apology or anything like that. So there was 5 million times that I come out of my turtle shell where it's already scary to do that. And it's already the most difficult thing on the face of the planet to try and say, I'm sorry, because like no one's validated me inside of my life, but I'm like going over and above for me going, okay, I'm sorry that I did that or whatever, that it felt that way or any of that stuff. And so when it didn't count, like you said, it's like, I don't know what to do. It feels so overwhelming because I'm already going above and beyond to get out of the inside of myself that I don't even know how to get this far out, but I did somehow to say I'm sorry and acknowledge.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you have so much evidence built up in your subconscious. And you guys, Pietze and Abby, talk about this a ton in Pathways. But that thing of like you have all your subconscious emotional being has thousands of examples to pull on. And this is where it gets tricky where you're 15 years into marriage. You have all of these experiences
all this evidence
to draw on that would tell you this is probably not going to end well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple times that it's ended well, but most of the time it doesn't. And so it feels very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it was, I mean, it was a hard thing because Jonny it really affected him. So he ended up submarining for like a month.
And it was kind of in and out. Like it wasn't like life and stress and stuff. Like you kind of.
And I mean, here's the thing. I laugh about our life because I'm like, our life very much has fire on it where we don't have margin. We are parents, we both run businesses, and we have a daughter with special needs. Yeah. Abby and I were talking today. We're like the divorce rate of, we talk, Jonny and I talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
The divorce rate of special needs parents is 80% or higher, I think. I can't remember, but it was above 80%. And it's because it literally adds so much stress to your life that you don't have a lot of margin.
Yep.
So then you think you have your parent, you have your job, all of that takes up a lot. And then you have a kid with more needs than a normal kid that pushes you to your limit constantly. And so then what do you have left over for your marriage or for the other person in terms of grace and compassion and margin? Not much.
Totally.
And we laugh because we're like, yeah, I don't know if we would have to work through all this stuff if we didn't have so much like hard things in our life, but it's really turned the fire up where we're like, hey, if we want to stay married and do this life, we have to grow. We have to change. There is no choice. And I think, it is hard because while he was submarining, and again, it's not like he completely leaves the building now completely, but
the softness was not there that it was when we reached that
the
point
connection that we had gotten to suddenly was not there anymore. And that just spun me out.
Well, and here's the complicated thing. You had gotten used to it at some level. And when you start to experience something different and put your guards down, your tolerance level where a month of him submarining might have been short in the past. That might not have been so long. But now that is like, it's like it turns up. Once you start becoming aware, once you get out of something, you start to become aware of how much it's affected you, and your tolerance level goes down. And so typically when people start to heal, they have the least tolerance for old patterns that they've ever had.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and it just, that is part of what, again, that's part of what makes it so complicated is you're coming out of this, and you're like jolting out of it and then going back. And it really spun me out.
I mean, it spun you out to a degree that has like led to the next chapter in our life, really, wouldn't you say?
Yes. It was kind of the catalyst that spun me out in a big way. And then after that, we basically, it kind of blew the hitch open on me grieving a deeper part of our daughter and her life, about like pain I was suppressing. I really think that because we've worked through so much of our marriage stuff, it's like now there's more room for pain that I wasn't able to get to because our marriage just surviving took up so much. And so I'm processing, and I think because it spun me out and I was getting so triggered, it was kind of shocking to me. Like my behavior was shocking to me in a way that like has caused me to look at myself even in a deeper way around like, wow, like, yeah, I have a lot of pain around feeling abandoned by Jonny and him submarining, but I can definitely see areas where I have been so dysregulated that I have been incredibly unsafe for him. Wow. And it's been a new level of humility and ownership, and honestly, it is so freaking scary to admit that because the fear is if I admit that I was emotionally out of control, you're going to disregard the pain that was underneath that I was trying so bad to get seen. And you could point to every time that I've spun out emotionally and gotten like loud and angry and ragey, you could look at the circumstances and go, okay, I can see how you got there. I can see how you were trying so hard to just get seen, or you were trying so hard. And I think for years I justified like, yeah, but you don't see my pain. Like, you don't see that I am trying so hard. Like, yeah, I spun out. And I think for a lot of times I felt shame.
Yeah.
I felt shame. So then I would feel bad that I did. That was kind of
the cycle.
That was the cycle.
It was like, I would do behavior that was unsafe for you. Mm-hmm. And over a long period of time, you would be scared to bring it up to me because you would know that I would leave emotionally if you brought it up to me.
Right.
But then it would build up so much that you would freak out. And then the only focus after the freak out was the fact that you freaked out. And the original issue never got dealt with, and the safety was never restored. Right. It just became about the fact that Pietze freaked out on me.
Yeah. And this happens to so many people. Shove it down, shove it down, shove it down. It explodes. Yes. You look like a crazy person, and you know it afterwards. You're like, hey, I'm really sorry. But then the true heart of it doesn't get fully seen.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that was the cycle. But I think that there's been a deeper level of me realizing that having a hard talk with myself and putting the pieces together of going, when in the beginning of our marriage, when he first shut down towards me, I was so scared of losing him that I felt like I couldn't
show up. You couldn't stand up for yourself.
I couldn't show up. I couldn't stand up for myself. And I had lost everyone in my life. And so I victimized myself to him, which then made me not have a voice in a healthy way and boundaries in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. I just would try to suppress because I knew it would make him shut down towards me until I'd just blow up. And I've gotten into bad patterns over the years. And so it's been interesting, but his love towards me, this is what's been so phenomenal for me, is that I am a mess in this season. I am grieving deep pain. Wow. I am working through really difficult things. I've had big triggers come out. I've had dirty pain come out that I've had to own and apologize and be incredibly humble. And
Dirty
Jonny,
pain, for those of you who don't know,
Yeah.
just means it's not pain that is about the present. It's pain that is because of past things that are involved.
Yeah, and it's expressing pain even in a way that is it's
Meant
not
to hurt the
actually
other person.
healing
Yeah.
and restorative.
Yeah.
It's I'm not connected to myself. I'm in a trigger
Well,
when
and-
I'm.
And I will say, just for context, like this process that you're in right now
Yeah.
started when we got back to safety after I was submarining.
Yeah.
Like it threw you for a loop. I think me submarining for
It
like
brought
a month,
up a lot of stuff.
it brought up a lot, and then we kind of
It was like a deeper layer. Like, oh, here it all comes.
over
you know?
the course of a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I think we kind of started getting back to safety, and then like something inside of Pietze, like I could just see it like break, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, what would you say that it is about us finally being safe again that like changed the way you view all this other pain in your life? Because prior to this, a lot of these things, even like with Yana, with our daughter, you hadn't been able to look at things. Like, why do you think that that brought you to the point that it did?
I don't know. I think I was internally holding on as a person.
I think you were like, I have to hold everything together in every area. I have
Yeah.
to be strong. I have to make sure everything is okay. I have to be put together.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like yeah, I think I've realized that I just have been holding on for 15 years thinking
Yeah.
like just one more day, like just one foot in front. I'm really good at just putting one foot in front of the other. Like I do my little list of chores, I work, and I can get us through, and it was like suddenly I just realized like I'm actually not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not okay, and that's really scary, you know? And because it's so scary because not being okay in the past has not been okay in our relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And his pain is my pain too. Like he feels like he can't sit in his pain and I stay connected, and I feel like I can't sit in my pain and he stays connected. But it was crazy because one night it just kind of came to a head, and I'd had a huge, I just was, the pain with our daughter was so big, and we had something come up with her. It just, I was like, I don't even know if I can do this. Like, it was just trauma and pain coming up, and like even just grieving, like what I thought my life would be versus what it is, what I thought being a mom would be versus what it is. Like, just taking a really hard look at my life and seeing what it actually is. And it was terrifying in some ways, but I just laid on the bed crying, and Jonny stayed so engaged the whole time. And he just sat on the bed, like holding me. And he was like, Pietze, you've been holding it together. Like you've been holding us together for 15 years. Like it's your turn to fall apart. Like you actually need to go on this journey. And I'm not scared of this. I'm not scared of you being in this journey. Like I'm not going to go anywhere.
The truth is, like, I've loved you falling apart on some level in these areas, because I think
I wish you guys could see her cute little smile when he said that. It just like her little lips just curled up so precious, like you do. It was so cute.
I think that Pietze had been holding on for a really long time. And as I've gone on my emotional journey, and as I've gone through midlife crisis and different things, I think on some level I had started actually feeling the pain of our life more than she was, because she was still hanging on, because she still didn't feel safe and all these things. And so there came this switch, and it's the craziest thing. And I would have never in a million years thought that this would happen in our relationship. But like where I had actually walked through some of these emotional things before she did.
Because I've always been the one pushing us like towards emotional health, like pushing, you know. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's just like some of the things I've processed through and grieved through with Yana and with different failed things in our life and different traumatic areas, you know, and realities that we're going to face as Yana gets older, and some of those different things, you know, like I'm a really deep feeler, and I have just let myself grieve those things. And I am telling you, as somebody who was so emotionally disconnected, it has been the biggest honor to actually be there and actually like let her be small, you know, like let her grieve and be the one who's saying, hey, you're going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. You're going to get through this.
Yeah, it's like so funny. He's like my own little life consultant right now. It's like,
but it's a beautiful
what is this
thing.
connected to? Hey, you're going to get through this. And on the other side of this, you're going to feel I'm like, okay.
So like from that point, because obviously you were confronted with some like really real things with Yana and with our life, and it kind of started breaking you open, but that was just the beginning of this whole process for you. Like what was the next steps for you from there? Like what happened?
I mean, I think it's because I'm grieving. And I mean, here's the thing. Jonny told me after I had this revelation that I was going to have to call Abby and be like, and tell her that she was right,
gosh,
which
great.
is the number one thing I hate doing in life.
Yeah.
It's the number one thing I hate doing. I would rather tell any other person that they're right other than her.
And yet you have to do it so often because I am right so much.
Oh, God.
If I had one life
God.
skill, it's that I typically know and feel and see what's happening in people's lives before they do.
Everybody wants to be, I want to be Abby Stumbl's best friend. I'm like, no, you don't. Because she has a laser vision for anything that is off, and you will know about it, even if you don't want to know about it.
It's like Chinese water torture.
Exactly. But she was like, I know that you haven't grieved you haven't grieved 15 years ago when your life fell apart.
Yeah.
Like you are going to have to go back and grieve that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel resolved about it. I feel fine. I don't feel trauma anymore. But I didn't have space or room to feel it until there was space and room between us to feel it. And I think it's just, I talked about this when in Abby and I's podcast that we did a couple weeks ago, just about how, you know, when that all happened, like I really victimized myself to Abby and to Jonny because I was so afraid of losing connection that I didn't have a voice. I didn't even show up.
Yeah.
And then because I felt like a victim, I couldn't sit with your guys' pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't be wrong. I couldn't sit with your pain about me. I couldn't sit with the things that I've done wrong or disappointed. And honestly, I've just gotten to repair relationship, and that it takes humility because love is not void of humility. Humility is in the fabric of love.
Yes.
But you also have to get safe enough within yourself to be humble, you know? And just we've used that phrase a lot. I'd like to say like something about being safe with yourself is learning how to have compassion on yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Learning how to
Have
regulate.
patience,
learning
kindness, gentleness.
Learning how
accepting
to
your humanity.
Yes.
Like and that's been a huge thing is being like, yeah, I'm human.
Yeah,
I'm
messy.
human
Yeah.
and I'm messy and I'm not going to do it well. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean that love should be withheld from me because I think that was a lie that got in 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Is
if you
like
do something wrong, love will be removed.
Love will leave.
Yeah.
And going like, no, I'm worthy of love even if I don't show up well, even if I make mistakes. And And if I make mistakes, I can be humble and I can say, I'm so sorry. I'm human. And that probably hurt, but then by doing that, it creates connection and safety. And we talk about this in Pathway, how ownership actually creates an abundance mentality in relationship.
It really does.
Because it brings grace. It brings abundance to the connection. Whereas unforgiveness and sitting in your emotion actually create nobody gets their needs met.
Yeah.
You're both just orphans.
Well, and one of the things I was thinking when you guys are talking about safety in a relationship, it happens when both people choose into ownership, to radical ownership.
Yeah.
And this is why I want every couple to take Pathway. Because if both people can watch and learn what ownership is for their own things,
yes,
repair and connection flow so easily when you learn to validate what the other person is going through and take ownership for your part. And when I'm listening to your story, one of the reasons I love listening to you is it's like a ping pong back and forth between Jonny saying, well, this is what I've done that's contributed. And then Pietze being and this is what I've done that's contributed. And you're going back and forth with ownership language, not back and forth with this is what you did that broke me. And this, but there's an acknowledgement on both sides. And that is the place that intimacy thrives so much. And I know that's most people are terrified to take ownership and validate because they're terrified they will be blamed and the other party will say, yeah, it is all your fault. And that's why
you'll never get seen.
Yes.
If I take, that's the lie. And that's the hardest thing, even in dealing when I'm working with couples and with us, is that if I take ownership, you're going to villainize me. And then I'll never get seen.
There can only be one truth in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
We can't both be good people in this situation.
Yeah.
One of us has to be the villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of us has to be the bad guy in this situation, rather than being able to hold the duality of you and I can have pain in the exact same area, and your pain can be with me and my pain can be with you, and we can both be responsible for that and take ownership, and at the same time we can both still be good people with good intentions. There's a duality where you can hold those two things, and it's really tough.
And holding duality is so difficult, and people who are very, very dysregulated have a hard time holding duality. Yeah. The brain goes to black and white.
So either I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong, or my pain matters and yours doesn't, or
I'm the victim, you're the villain, vice versa, And so learning how to get safe enough within yourself to hold duality is really such a feat. And to get to the place, I think the things that I'm owning about myself in this season are really scary to own, and they're really scary to look at, of just how much my spin outs emotionally really created unsafety for Jonny. And it's so scary, but also at the same time, I don't have shame because I'm getting out of black and white thinking, because I'm getting safe within myself. And so that safety is just built for each other. And then the more I take ownership, the more he feels safe to take ownership. And then we feel safe within ourselves and safe with each other. And
and really what you're saying too is when you don't think you're bad for being human, and when you understand your messiness, not only can you have grace for yourself, but then you can have grace on your partner. When you're like earlier, when you were of course, Jonny submarined because life happened and he's human and we do that. Well, that, of course, and that compassion for him is built on the muscle of you learning that for you.
Yes.
Of you learning to give and receive.
Yes, because I can't extend that kind of grace and love towards him when I have not extended it towards myself. And that's what I think is shifting even more and more, is I'm realizing depths where I'm oh, wow, there is a strong inner critic that I didn't realize. Because I've worked really hard on my inner critic, but I'm wow, there's depths to which I didn't realize. And that's why I haven't been able to extend that love and compassion.
Well, and one thing I will say, and this is one of the things that Pietze has always, this is me telling Pietze that she's been right all this time.
Ooh.
Oh, yay. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. I'm listening.
One of the things that never showing up with your pain in the relationship, one of the things it does is it creates a culture where you're telling the other person it's not safe for them to show up with your pain. because the relationship is just one.
With their pain, you mean?
Yeah, with their pain.
Yeah.
So it becomes this relationship that it is a burden to me that you bring me your pain because I never bring you mine.
Mm-hmm.
We are not sharing each other's burdens.
Yep.
I am carrying yours.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I think a lot of men feel that. Like,
Yes.
oh, this woman is just another thing on
there's
my
no
to-do
room
list to
for
fix.
mine.
Another thing that I need to like figure out how to fix.
But one of the biggest things that I will say is that as you've been going through this last season of dealing with a lot of deep grief,
Mm-hmm.
it has been a pleasure to carry your pain. And that's not something that I ever thought I would say. But the reason,
I don't think
You know what
any
I'm
of us
saying?
ever
No.
thought you was-
but it's because there's a mutual exchange where I have showed up vulnerably
Mhm.
and I have brought my pain and you have loved me in it.
Mm.
And we've had that like all the way back to that time when we had that connection, you know, where we were just weeping in the shower together.
Mm-hmm.
There's when you start to establish this safety, it becomes a pleasure to bear each other's burdens because you see the humanity in the other person and
You
you
can
actually you want to carry them and you want to have compassion because you're carrying each other's burdens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, and I think it became, and this is important to say, it became different because Pietze's not using blame language the
Yes.
same way. So she used to have big
Mhm.
emotions, but it was filled with blame. And now she has big emotions, but she understands more often.
Yes.
Not like she's perfect,
I'm
but
not
she
perfect.
understands more
No.
often what they are about, what it's really going back to. So it's less like you're bad, here's all my pain.
Yeah.
It's more like I'm having a lot of pain. And so
And I can now, both of us can identify what is actually the emotion, what is actually the fear, and communicate from that place, which avoids conflict so easily.
Mhm.
You know, like so much more, like we avoid conflict so much more easily just because of
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah.
And I will say, like, this whole process, like, we are getting in every area. It's the 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And I would
Mhm.
encourage anybody who is going on this journey, whether, like,
Mhm.
even
That's
with
good.
people who have done pathways or people who are starting the journey, you just got to be faithful to it. You
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
keep putting one foot in front of the next.
Yeah.
Because there will be forward steps and there will be backward steps, but with successfully and over time,
We
like
always say consistency compounds.
every time we get back to safety, we believe that we can do it again a
Yes.
little bit more.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
every time we get back to connection,
We believe.
we have more, it's a deeper level of connection, you know? So it is that just keeping on with these concepts and
Yeah.
with this journey, like
Yeah.
it's worth it. It's worth fighting for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been so good.
Well, and
Yeah.
I just want to encourage you, if you're out there listening and you're single, I want you to have hope because there is so many things you can learn, so many tools you can learn on how to create good attachment. It's not this mysterious thing. You either have a good marriage or you don't. And for people
Yeah.
who are married
Mhm.
listening,
Be
like
really
a
deliberate.
lot of married people think, well, I just married the wrong person. And so it just is
Right.
this way. Instead of
Mhm.
understanding, we all have attachment issues. We all have triggers. We all have past pain. And really, you can learn a lot of skills and tools. I wish they taught this in school, but you can learn a lot. You can transform your relationships by learning relational health tools. And that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
we create
yeah.
courses. That's why we do what we do, because we want to see the planet learn the tools that will do that. So if you are interested in taking the pathway to freedom, if you're single, it's a great thing to learn so that you can start to put it into practice before you have to work through 15 years of marriage pain.
100%.
And if you're
Keep that
married,
word.
there's never a too late. There's always the time to get to where you can repair and heal old pain. It's so beautiful that we always have the chance for redemption and for greater intimacy. And if you did pathways before, we have an alumni discount and we recommend doing it again. We've had people take our Living Fully Alive course like 3 or 4 times because every time they're hearing something
Yeah.
new because they're having different awareness.
Well, and also we're even learning and growing
Yeah.
as we teach. So we're getting new revelation that we're passing on. And I just want to say, because, you know, we work with couples all the time, but for both Abby and I and all of us, like the foundation for what we teach, like when couples come to us for marriage counseling, we start with the tools in Pathways.
Yes.
It is the foundation for starting to repair. It is the very foundation of where we go with things. So it's literally like, I'm like, yeah, if you can't get in with us, like take the course and start just going on the journey.
Yeah,
you know?
and courses are non-threatening. Like sometimes marriage counseling is scary because you have to dive into like your deepest pain. But honestly, no, honestly, sometimes marriage counseling has felt traumatizing to me because you're just like bringing up the worst shit.
Oh yeah, you're going after it.
Yeah. Whereas a course, you can just listen to and like slowly acclimate and start to have conversations about what it inspires and you don't have to dive all the way to the bottom of the barrel at once. So you can go to justinandabby.com and you can go under the courses, the Pathway to Freedom. It starts in September. We always have courses running. If you end up listening to this and Pathway's done, we're probably about to do Living Fully Alive. We have, just email us. If you are listening at any point and you want to know which course is next, email us so that you can get on the list and we'll let you know.
That's so good. You guys didn't actually
talk about sex.
Describe much of your sex life.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this about that.
Do you think we should do like a mini episode, like a 30-minute sex episode?
I mean, I can get this done in one sentence.
You can get it done in 1 minute.
Oh, he can get it done.
Maybe 2 sentences.
Oh, okay.
We've had a great sex life, a really great sex life for 15 years. And in the last 12 months, there have been at least 3 or 4 times for each of us where we walked away and we're like, that's the best sex we've ever had. Mm-hmm. So it is progressively like getting better, which I think is saying something when you've been married for 15 years.
Oh, yeah. Jonny and I have been saying, we're like, if little do guys know that the key to getting the type of sex that they dream of. Oh, man,
it's been great.
With their
guys listening out there. They want, like, get in the Pathway to Freedom, get connected to this. You're gonna
I'm telling you, the key to getting Jonny's like literally like, this is the sex I dreamed that I would have.
I gave up on having this kind of sex.
Yeah, that's what he's told me so many times. He's like, I gave up on having this kind of sex.
Like, I was just like, I'm just going to be content.
And I'm like, yeah, little do you guys know that literally the key is like dealing with your stuff and emotional safety.
Yeah, connecting.
You know, like connecting in.
That's awesome.
Safe sex is the best.
This is like the most PG sex talk I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was.
The guys are all going to be like duped. They're going to be like, wait, I listened to this whole episode.
Okay, maybe we'll do a mini sex episode at some point. We'll give all the real deep.
They're like, you didn't describe any positions. How do I do this? I was hoping for pointers.
Wait, how good is the sex? Then I'll know if I want to take the course. Like, I need details here.
Mind blowing.
Anyways.
I mean, it's been pretty mind blowing.
You two, thank you so much for sharing these parts of your story. I know that it's so hopeful and inspiring when people can go, okay, you can get 15 years into marriage and it can get better and better, every aspect of it. And there's actually a roadmap to that, for that to happen. And if it's not, if it's 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, that's not a bad thing. I'm still moving forward, and it gives a lot of people hope inside of that. And especially because you both are doing a lot to help people, and you're still, just like Abby and I, we're still just working through our process. We haven't arrived at something specifically. There's not like this huge arrival point where there's nothing left to do. It's a revelation of love ongoing for all of us. So I really appreciate you sharing and all that. And who wants to say goodbye?
Bye.
I don't even know what that was.
So weird.
Well, I literally was like, well, I don't want to say goodbye. Is that the question?
Yeah.
This is fun.
Well, I'm saying goodbye. Okay. This is done.
All right, bye.
You're done. Yeah, that's right. We're done. Go away.